Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the podcast, Purpose, Passion, and Profession. Today, I'm really lucky to have a very close and dear friend of mine, the Honorable Darron Bowden. Judge Bowden is a judge in the Circuit Court of Cook County. I have known him since the mid-1990s. He was my first boss at the Cook County Public Defender's Office. When I got that job, I was assigned to the juvenile division, and Darron was the chief over there. And yeah, I mean, what a great person to have as your first boss, because from the day I got there, I felt like I was trusted and I was able to do things in my courtroom, and I just never felt like I had somebody looking over my shoulder. But at the same time, I knew that I had somebody that I could always go to get advice as a young lawyer. And over the years, we've kept in touch. And I will tell you one thing that's really special about Darron and that I really cherish. Back in 2019, I ran for state's attorney in Kane County, and he was then, as he is now, a judge out in Markham. And where I live and where I had my kickoff event was at least 60 miles apart. But Darron left work, drove 60 miles during Chicago rush hour traffic, and made it to the event. And that was, gosh, that was like a good 20 some years after we had worked together in person. That speaks
Wow.
to the quality of the person he is. And I'm really glad to have him on the show today. Darron, how are you?
I'm blessed, my brother. How are you doing?
I am doing really good too. Family is good. Kids are growing up. It's kind of blowing my mind when I think about, we had that event down on 95th Street when the first time I think you were running for judge. And
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that was the first time that I had a chance to meet your family. You got a chance to meet my wife, Nazneen. I think at that time, I wasn't even a dad. You were. I met your kids, and I'm thinking about it now. My kids and your kids are now grown.
Absolutely. My daughter, the oldest is 35, youngest is 31. I believe your kids are out of college, and one may be in college, I'm assuming.
I've got one that's out of college and three that are in college.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Fantastic.
So time flies, and I'm really glad that you and I could connect here. So, Darron, I want to talk to you about your career and the things that drove you to do the things that you've done. I know that you went to college in Tennessee, right?
Yes,
So are
Tennessee
you,
State University.
okay, so are you from Tennessee?
No, I'm from Chicago.
Okay, so you went down there for college.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I'm a third generation Tennessee State University graduate.
Outstanding. Outstanding. And then from there you stayed in the South and you went to the Thurgood Marshall School of Law in Texas. Is that right?
Right on the campus of Texas Southern University in Houston, Texas.
All right. So you graduated law school, I believe, in 1987, and then came back home to Illinois.
That's correct.
So did you join the public defender's office right away?
For a little while, I was just like freelancing a little bit. Then I was employed with the public defender's office as a paid intern, even though I had my law license, because they didn't have a class at that time. And when that class came on, the first class with Randolph Stone, I came on board.
Okay, great. So I believe that Professor Stone is still teaching at the University of Chicago now. Is
No,
that
I
right?
think he's retired now.
Oh, he's retired, but that's where
Yeah,
he went afterwards, I think.
absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
And then I joined the office when Rita Fry was the public defender. And so you, by that time, you had become the chief of the juvenile division.
Yes, it was really they separated because at one time it was all together, juvenile justice, child protection, and then they went through that split uh between divisions. So I was chief of child protection.
Okay, that's right. And Mike McInerney was at juvenile justice, if I remember
Correct.
correctly. All
Correct.
right, yeah, it's bringing back all kinds of memories.
It seemed
So
like yesterday, but it was a long time ago.
it does, it does literally feel like yesterday, and that's I think that's a blessing that like it doesn't feel like it's that long ago, and I think that has something to do with, for me at least, the good experience that I
Absolutely.
had there.
Absolutely.
So
Wouldn't change it for the world.
yeah, absolutely, 100% agree. So tell me a little bit about like how you worked your way up to chief of the child protection division at the PD's office. Where were the different places that you were assigned to and working up to the point where you got to child protection?
So when I was first hired on as a paid intern, I was assigned to a multiple defender unit. And the chief was retired Judge James Rose. And he knew that I had my license. And so even though I was a paid intern, he gave me a stack of cases like that. Did a lot of work throughout the county because there was multiple defender unit, 26 in California, Markham, traffic, did about a little bit of everything. When I was working there, I saw an attorney. He was frustrated when he came back from 20 in California. So I asked Chief Rose at that time what was going on, and he was representing a guy who was facing the death penalty, and this guy would not come and speak to him. So I asked Chief Rose, can I go and see if I can talk to the young man? And he said, sure. So I went there and guy wouldn't come down. Asked the deputy to take me on the tier. Took me on the tier, and we had some choice words. I had some choice words for him. They said, I think I like you. And that person was Lawrence Jackson, charged with a quadruple homicide. And so I was working mitigation on that case, and that was actually the first jury that I assisted on. Death penalty case. He was found guilty, sentenced to death, reversed on appeal. I was on the case again, second time, same results, and then the sentence was commuted by Governor Ryan. And so that was it. And once I became an assistant public defender, assigned to the juvenile division and did child protection there as well as juvenile justice. And then my wife was called to active duty in Desert Storm, and my oldest was about 8 months. And we lived in the south suburbs, and so I came out to Markham for about a year, did misdemeanor work, second chair, some felony work, and then I was promoted to what we call a grade 3. And so I handled murder cases, transfer cases, back in juvenile, and then termination of parental rights. From there, named supervisor, then chief. And I left for a couple of years, did some not-for-profit, came back as chief again of child protection, and then I was blessed to be appointed to the bench as associate judge.
And that appointment came in 2007, if I remember right.
Absolutely. April
Awesome.
2007.
Yeah. So, a couple things. So early in your career, you had the opportunity to be a part of a, really high level in terms of complexity case. You said it was like I believe you said it was a multiple murder defense case, and you were working on the sentencing mitigation aspect of it. You were part of the jury trial. That's not common.
No, that's very unusual. And once I did the assisted on the case, someone said it's all downhill from there. You've maxed it out already. So, but it was interesting.
But I get the point of it being all downhill from there because you've kind of done the kind of the pinnacle of complex and high profile and high stakes litigation. But I have a hunch that you probably didn't feel the same way, because I know that when I was at the public defender's office, what I loved about the job was really the idea that I was trying to ensure that the people that I represented felt that they were being treated like anybody else, regardless of the fact that they couldn't afford a lawyer of their own. And I don't think that even now a lot of people understand the value of that, but people who serve as public defenders get it.
So let me rewind. Let me go back close to 50 years. So when I was 10 years of age, it was in the summer in 1972. I was at the park and I was riding my bike, and I was coming from the south side of Chicago over the Dan Ryan Expressway when a Chicago police squad cut me off, put out the guns, went through my pockets, called me everything but a child of God. I was blessed to have a neighbor, Mr. Glenn, who observed what was going on, called. My mama said they have your boy up there on the corner. As quick as they jumped out, did what they did, they jumped back in, took off, and I couldn't even get back on my bike. And so I was walking my bike home, and my parents were part of the block club along with Mr. Glenn, and he had wrote down the number of the squad. We called the commander. Commander came out. Mr. Glenn had the information. He called the squad in. By that time, my dad was in from work, and he called officers to the house. And they came to the house, and Mr. Glenn and myself said, yeah, those are the officers. And Commander said, well, what do you want to do? And my father said, all I want is an apology. I'm like, an apology? I want more than an apology. So I was mad, went back to my room. And when my dad came in the room and said, how do you feel? I said, I'm angry. And he said, don't get angry, get smart. If you don't like the way your teachers are teaching you, become a teacher. If you don't like how businesses treat you, become a business person. If you don't like how law enforcement is treating people like you in your neighborhood, become an attorney. And like the cartoon, that light bulb went off. And so at 10, I knew I wanted to be an attorney doing public service work, trying to be a voice for those who don't have a voice, trying to make sure that people have proper representation. And so at the age of 10, I was hungry. And so even until this day, I'm trying to make sure that justice is served by all communities, make sure the scales are balanced, make sure that people have a voice, be it as a judge, a defendant or a victim on the case and try to uplift the community through the law. One of Thurgood Marshall's mentors, Charles Hamilton Houston,
Hmm.
said that attorneys are agents of social change. We can shape communities through the law. And that's what I've always tried to do, even until this day. Social engineers.
It's I I think it's a testament to why I feel such a kinship with you. Like literally writing an article right now for the Illinois Bar Journal, really trying to argue that we as lawyers and judges too need to step up in this moment that we find ourselves as a country.
Absolutely.
And I literally cite uh, Attorney Houston and Thurgood Marshall, as well as a few others, as examples of people who said exactly what you said, that we're not just technicians. This is not just a technical guild that we belong to as lawyers and judges. We take oaths, and we have a nobler calling, and that we are agents of change. And absolutely, amen to everything you just said right there.
I believe in this climate, the judiciary, the courts, all the players in the court system, we're going to have to be the last boundary of protection. And I'm still holding out, even though the Congress is silent, other people are silent. I just hope and pray that we have enough intestinal fortitude to stand up for the Constitution and stand up for what is right. I think we are the last stronghold.
I, I couldn't agree with you more. I've read somewhere, and I don't remember where, but somebody said, whether or not and I'm talking about the United States and our system as we know it, can survive the onslaught may be an open question, but what should be a given is that our judiciary should be the last line of defense, that they
Absolutely.
must be the ones who hold out the longest, not the first to capitulate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's going to be so important. And I have faith and hope that we are
I
going to
do
be.
too.
I believe so.
I am still hopeful that the majority of the people in the legal system, but it's not just up to the legal system, it's up to all the citizens, all the people in our communities, that will line up shoulder to shoulder with the lawyers and the judges to stand up and say, not on our watch, that this is not acceptable, that there are lines that we will not cross. And I am hopeful for that. So let's see where these next few years take us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I want to touch on something else. You talked about the sort of the childhood experience that inspired you to become a lawyer. I'm sure that you've heard this when you were a young lawyer, when you were starting in the public defender's office, but I want you to walk me through the mindset of a public defender. I mean, you know, I remember working in the abuse and neglect section, and if you remember, I for whatever reason, I got assigned to a permanent termination of parental rights calendar, calendar 11 something, with Judge Hayes and Judge Gambala, and I can't remember who the other judges were, but that was a pretty intense and heavy type of case to be defending as a new lawyer, because you were essentially, like looking at some pretty bad fact patterns. And I know that even my parents would ask me, how can you do that work? How can you defend people that do X, Y, and Z? And talk me through your mindset about, like, how you squared that.
My thing was, and if you look at the criminal side, the state has the burden. The state has to prove that person guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And I was there to make sure the state did their job. And so it didn't matter if it was someone who committed quadruple homicide or someone who stole a hostess Twinkie or some kid stopped on the street. And so understood the bigger picture that people had a right to be represented, to have quality representation. And I had to be firm in myself because some people are saying, I don't want a public defender, I want a real attorney. Even though you put all your sweat, blood, tears into these cases, have cases up under your bed, you basically working. If you wake up at 3 in the morning, let me take a look at this case. Let me try to figure some out. And so I always looked at it, I still look at it as it's larger than me. What I'm trying to uphold is much larger. It has a real purpose. And I have to, as Thurgood Marshall said, protect it, improve it, and then pass it on to the next generation. In Cook County at that time, the child protection unit had about 40,000 cases. And we worked hard. And the reason I love child protection, and I could have gone to 20 in California, homicide task force, but I always believe that if we correct conditions, beginning with the family, and we're able to keep the family together, then we won't see those kids in delinquency, juvenile justice. Then we won't see them at 26 in California marking. So being able to be at the front lines, boots on the ground, trying to make sure that kids weren't removed from homes based on poverty. The kids weren't removed from homes because a certain segment of society was trying to impose their family values on other people. And so that's why I love child protection and juvenile court. Because if I was effective there, then people wouldn't have to be dealing with quadruple homicides. Our client in that case had a history of abuse and neglect. He was abused. Saw his mother raped, was beat, and if certain things were in place when he was a kid, maybe, just maybe, he wouldn't have been there. It says hurt people hurt people.
Absolutely.
And that's what it was.
I couldn't agree with you more. And when I was running for state's attorney in King County, that's the message that I was trying to bring to people. People said, "Oh, are you a law and order prosecutor? Will you be a law and order prosecutor?" And I said, "Listen, law and order is the wrong phrase. Public safety, healthy communities, that's what you want, because at the end of the day, law and order, well, you can go to despotic regimes where there's absolutely no freedom, and they have law and they have order, they have zero crime, but that's not what we're looking for." And then I would tell people, like, even within Kane County, I would say to people in some of the more affluent communities, including the one that I lived in, and I'd say, which are the gang prevention programs and the anti-violence programs that you put your kids in to keep them from, getting into trouble as juveniles? And they would look at me like, none. I said, well, that's interesting. So, there were no programs that you had that kept your kids from going down that path. Why do you think that is? And they would say, well, Junaid, it's because we have good schools and, we have safe communities. Our kids don't get involved in those things because they have other things to, you know, help them become healthy young people. I said, bingo. That's
Right.
what it comes down to. That, it's not about creating these programs and creating all these remedial measures after they get in trouble. Fix the problem before they get in trouble. Give them the same benefits and opportunities and safe communities that other kids get. And I promise you, you will see crime rates drop. But we keep trying to throw money after, you know, the the law enforcement and the law and order and the jails and the prisons, instead of fixing the schools, getting jobs in communities, making communities safe. And it's just a vicious cycle.
It is. Unfortunately, those are systems that exist. And that's one thing I've learned in our profession, and I feel that when you come in as a young, hungry attorney, you think you're going to change the world by certain means, and you find out real quick you have to try another avenue because oftentimes it's $1 trillion industry. If schools are not in place, they know how many beds they can have for penitentiaries based on school attendance in third grade. And so that's why you have to try to plug up or dismantle the school to prison pipelines.
Oh, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. When you were at the public defender's office, I don't remember what year it was that you first tried to get to the bench. Do you remember what year that was?
That was like in 98,
98.
95, something like that.
Yeah, it was probably 98 because I joined the
Yeah.
office at like around 95, 96, and I had already known you for a few years when
Yeah.
you made that first run for it. So you didn't get it on that effort. I mean,
Correct.
how did you stick with it? You obviously did, and you were appointed associate judge. But I want you to talk to me a little bit about like just your mindset of what made you decide that that was the right time, and then how you dealt with not getting what you wanted on the first try.
And so I think you remember Robert Johnson, Harold Hall, and so it was a Friday, and we was in my office, chief's office, and we were fussing about judges in juvenile court, calling them dumb, they don't know what they doing. And it was at that time those two said, you need to run for judge. And I gave them a challenge, they met the challenge, then I decided to run for judge. I ran countywide, which was a uh, huge mountain to climb, especially if you did not have the backing of the Democratic Party. It was very interesting. You see politics up close and personal. Uh, the good sides of it and the negative sides of it. Where I was able to concentrate, we ran real good, very good. Came up short. Some other opportunities presented itself, but I thought I was going to be effective in the court system, legal system. Some people approached me about running for other offices because I performed pretty good where we was able to concentrate. But the court system was where my heart was. Continue to do what I always did. Try to do what was fair, what was just, and continue to travel that path of trying to be an advocate, trying to be a voice for somebody. And then it led to put your name in for associate judge, and knock on wood, all praises to our creator, I got the position.
That's awesome. So you mentioned two names, Robert Johnson and Harold Hall. I used to, when I was in the juvenile division, when I was in abuse and neglect, like after work, we'd go work out together, and
That's right. That's right. That's right.
we used to hang
That's
out,
right.
and then I took those two to their first Midlands wrestling tournament at Northwestern, and I really I miss hanging out with those two back
When you
back in
see
those
working
days.
out, that's right. John did work out.
Yeah, and I kept in touch with both of them for a long time. I have not seen Harold in many years. Rob and I still, Judge Johnson and I still keep in touch from time to time. I like to keep in touch with him because he's a Nebraska football fan, and ever since Iowa started playing, all that talk about how great Nebraska is and how they're better than Iowa. Now you have an opportunity every Thanksgiving to see how wrong Robert Johnson has been.
You're an Iowa fan, and Big R was Nebraska.
Yeah, so I just talked to Rob about a month ago, real briefly, but it was nice to touch base with him, and I told him we're gonna try to grab lunch sometime when I'm downtown. So I'm hoping that'll happen sometime soon.
Sounds great.
So you made it to the bench as an associate judge in 2007, and so, gosh, you're coming on 18 years now on the bench.
Oh yeah.
And I was just looking at where you are now. You are in Markham. You're in juvenile justice, and
That's it.
I believe that are you still the supervising judge overseeing the transfer cases now?
Yes. Yes. And so my judicial career, I came on, did about a week and a half in First Municipal, sat in the police station on 100, and then I went out to the Markham courthouse. When I was in Markham, did traffic, domestic violence, misdemeanor room, bond hearing rooms, arraignments. Then in 2010, I had a major illness. I was basically off for close to a year. I was off. And when I returned, went back to the preliminary hearing room, I started doing specialty courts. Drug court, mental health court, veterans court. I oversaw those courtrooms. And then I went to felony trial room. I was doing that for a while. And there was an opening in juvenile court. And in the middle of a jury trial, presiding judge Tommy Brewer came to me and said, Darron, I want to keep you, but I know your heart has always been in juvenile. And this is an opportunity if you want to go to juvenile. And as you know, juvenile has always been my heart. I told you I got sick in 2010. I was supposed to go to juvenile in 2010. Ended up with Legionnaire's disease. Was in a coma for about 40 days. I had to learn how to walk, talk, write, everything all over again. That was a process that took approximately a year to get me back where I could do it full time like I was before. and went to juvenile, and this is where I will retire. It's full circle. Love my kids, love working with the kids, love trying to point them in the right direction, and try to have some impact on some young lives.
I was telling somebody that I hope that like my wish would be to, you know, be a circuit court judge one day, and the other people to, you know, talk about they want to be you know, they want to be doing criminal jury trials, or they want to be in the law division doing complex civil litigation. And honest to God, the people that I have these kinds of, you know, really personal conversations with, I tell them, if I God's plan for me was to become a circuit court judge, I would love to be back doing child protection and juvenile cases, because truly that is where my heart is. You know, the things we talked about earlier, if you want to make a difference, I mean, get there early. And I've seen pictures of you in the courtroom, and I and I see the way you're talking, you know, you're like reaching over the bench and talking to
Right.
young people, and you've got your robe unzipped, and like you create a little bit more of a like less domineering
Yeah.
atmosphere. and and I look at the picture, and maybe somebody who doesn't know you might not understand what's happening in that picture, but I look at those pictures of you in those courtrooms with those you know, with people, and I know exactly what's going on. You are making connections with those kids, and you are changing lives by the way you interact with them, and that's amazing work.
You know, the thing of it is, and you have I talked about this time and time again, sometimes when the kids come in front of me, that's the first black judge they've ever seen in person. Coming from the neighborhood, I might have a kid that went to my CPS, Harlan High School, and I say, "Oh, I went to the school." He was like, "Huh?" And then I go out and bring out a football jersey and show him a picture when I was a freshman at Harlan. And then there's the connection. They understand, guess what? And I tell them, if I can make it, you can make it. Because I asked them what their grades were. And their grades are much better than my grades when I was in high school. You just have to, and I've been fortunate enough to have beautiful parents who put me in positions. You know, our Eugene Pension. And
I do.
so he went to Tennessee State back in the day, where I ended up going, but he lived not too far away, and I was always a bold kid. And so when I found out it was our Eugene Pension, at recess, I went and knocked on his door during lunch. And I said, "Are you Eugene Pension?" He said, "Yeah, boy, how you know that?" And I told him, "Well," and he called me in and had his wife fix me a sandwich because I was missing lunch. And we talked, and we're close like that. And I've been very fortunate and blessed to do what I love to do. I tell people I haven't worked a day in my life in professional career because I do this is what I was designed to do. And I know I'm blessed because a lot of people don't experience that. They have a long route. And I say you just have to be committed to what you want to do, stay strong in your faith, and understand that every turn and twist is leading you to where you need to be. So just remain committed and true to what you've been called to do. Don't get discouraged. And don't get down, because sometimes when one door closes, It's meant for you to go through another door, which will get you to your ultimate purpose in life. And I also tell people I'm the type of person that I believe money follows your mission. And so just stay on your mission, what you called to do. And if you are an expert, you understand your skills, and you are true to a larger purpose than yourself, then those doors will open up and you will be where you are designed to be.
100%. Two things that I want to pick up on there. I don't want to keep you too much longer, but two things that you said that are really important. I want to emphasize them. You talked about this the time you went to our Eugene Pincham's home and knocked on his door and
Absolutely.
introduced yourself. That is on point, exactly how you should do it. I was just talking to my eldest daughter the other day, and I said, if I could give advice to my 21-year-old self, one of the things that I would say is, go get mentors. That's a no-brainer because, I'm all about mentorship. But the second part of that was I said, but don't wait for mentors to come to you. You go out there and find the people who are doing what you want to do and build a relationship with them. Go out and find those people. And you know what? A lot of times you don't realize that, there are a lot of good people out there in the world, in your neighborhood. They may not be putting themselves out there to you, but if you approach them and say, hey, I would like to learn from you, they would be happy to, you know,
They
take you
want to
under their
give you
wing.
they want to give you their expertise. And if you are aggressive enough and you ask them, they'll say, yeah, sure. Because if you want to learn it and you're bold enough to knock on my door, come on in, learn it. And then I have a lot of mentors. I look at you as a mentor because I'm able to learn from you. How you conducting this podcast, even before then, it was impressive to me when you was running for state's attorney in Kane County. That's a bold move. And a lot of people wouldn't do it. And how do you address where you're a defense attorney and now you want to be a state's attorney? How does all that mesh? And to hear answers. And you can also find, for me, I never met Charles Hamilton in Houston, but I read his works. I try to see what it was about. So I learn about those people by reading, studying. And so I may not meet them face to face, but guess what? I'm learning. Lessons he taught others, I'm learning. And that's how you can find mentors all across the board. And don't be afraid, don't stay in your silo. Knock on doors, and if you do that, doors will swing open to you.
100%. I could not agree with you more. I'm so with you on that point. The other thing that I wanted to ask you about is, you talked about your the young people that come before you, and you can look at them and they look at you, and maybe you're the first black judge that they've ever seen. And then when you show them that, oh, I went to your high school, and you show them that you have walked in their shoes, that you understand where they are coming from, that it makes a difference. I'll tell you that, there are a lot of good judges in Illinois, but there are a lot of judges who don't understand, and I don't understand how they don't understand this, but they don't, the importance of having women and men on the bench who have come from varied backgrounds. When people think diversity, they think black, white, Asian, the skin deep kind of stuff. And I'm saying, no, it's more than that. It's the
Absolutely.
experiences that you've had. If you haven't lived a certain experience, then when that experience comes in front of you, you're not going to understand it. I remember reading this in a book from Cook County. It was about Cook County, and there was a case where a man, you know, went before a judge and he was explaining that he missed court because of, like he had a problem with like some little thing about his car. And the judge was like, "You're lying because, the problem you had with your car was so minor, anybody could have fixed it," not understanding that this is a man who lives in a neighborhood where you don't have an automotive store just down the street. And even if he did, he's a man that's living paycheck to paycheck. So there's not that discretionary income that when something breaks down in your car, you can just say, "No problem. Here, just put it on my MasterCard. Let's get this fixed." And if you have not lived that, if you've never seen that in your life, then when that fact pattern comes in front of you, you might find it incredulous. You might say, "Oh, that can't be real." And so, like, like that lived experience makes a difference. And I mean, what do you think about that?
No, it's absolutely true. I'll tell you a story. I had a person not in front of me. I was the attorney, and Judge court date previous said, "I want you to come dress your best when you come before the court." Next day she comes, or next court date she comes in, and she has like a party dress on,
Hmm.
and the court hit the ceiling. "What you coming in dressed like this for?" And I said, "Judge, she did what you said. You said come dress your best. This is her best in her mind. This is my best dress. This is what I wear when I want to look best, be it at a club or whatever." She may not have that dark blue pinstripe suit, two-piece suit. So you need to understand when you address people, you need to know where people are. And if you don't know where people are, maybe you need to be in another division, another unit. If you don't understand the struggles of people. Being a judge, people say he saw the police and he took off running. So he must have been up to no good. I'm like, huh? Well, in my neighborhood, when you saw the police coming up, people ran. I ran. After I had my experience at 10 years old, I wasn't waiting for the police because I knew Officer Friendly was a lie. I saw what they did. And so you need people from all types of experience and background. If I'm not mistaken, you came over this state as a young child.
Yeah,
You are an immigrant family.
absolutely.
And I tell people now, when you see what's going on, it's like the slave patrols. You had to have papers or they were going to round you up. And you better pray to God that people didn't tear your stuff up and then do something to you. So we've seen this, and hopefully we have enough backbone to stand up in the courts, on the streets, in Congress to say, not again. We're not going back here again. And you need people like yourself and me to be in positions. And we need to understand we're not in these positions just for us. Because not too long ago, your ancestors can be administrative law judges. My people can be on the bench. We didn't have diversity in these offices. And now we have it, and we're in a position that we have to stand up for what's right. And if
Absolutely.
we don't do it, then that's a great sin, because you're in a position to stand up for what's right and what's just, and you don't do it, then you're going to have to answer to a higher calling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Darren, this has been so nice to spend some time and talk to you. Honest to God, I've always enjoy talking to you because it brings me up. It lifts my spirits because the things that you believe in are the kinds of things that I want to live by. And, they're the kinds of things that I want my kids to hear. That's one of the reasons why I'm, doing this project is that I have friends like you, and I may not be able to have them sit down with you one on one and have like long conversations, but this is the next best thing for them to hear about a person who's lived your life and has achieved the things he's achieved, that's faced different kinds of adversity, the things that you experienced as a kid, and then the health experience adversities that you faced, and you overcame those, and you're just pushing, and you keep on going right now to make differences in people's lives. That's inspiring, and I thank you for that.
Man, I think that's why we've always been lifelong friends, because we're cut from the same cloth. We're looking for the same thing. I am so happy for this podcast because it will inspire, hopefully, not only our kids, other kids, and the future to come, and they need to hear this. They need to
Absolutely.
understand. Don't surrender so easily. Continue to work on what you want to work on, and things will be better. I'm so glad to talk to you.
Amen. I am too. Thank you so much, Darren. I look forward to. I hope that our paths will cross in
Oh,
the
yeah.
in real life in the near
And guess
future.
what? We have to be intentional about it. Maybe you, myself, Rob, and Harold, all of us can do lunch or something together. We
All
have
right.
to make it happen.
Yeah, we do have to be intentional about that, and I will definitely pick up on that thread and start seeing what I could do about that.
Fantastic. Go
All right, my brother.
Hawkeyes.
Go Hawkeyes.
I
All right,
see you
Darren,
later,
you have a
man.
good night.
All right, love you.
Love you too, brother. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.